Ok, bonjour tout le monde. Je vais faire une petite introduction en français et puis on va continuer en anglais parce que toutes les présentations de ce matin sont en anglais. Bienvenue à cette deuxième séance du deuxième jour de notre colloque. On va continuer en anglais, mais vous pouvez poser vos questions en français si vous voulez et je vais faire la traduction si nécessaire. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this second session of the second day of the Colloquium, Populism and the Social Sciences. So this morning we talked about populism in Quebec, and now we're shifting the geography to other places around the world, and more particularly Turkey and India. And so we have Axel Gehring and Ezgi Pinar from Philipps-Universität of Marburg. And then we have Rohan from Maitreyi College, University of Delhi. And then we have Santoshi Kumari from Lakshmi College, also University of Delhi. So how we've planned this is that we'll be giving each speaker, and we'll go in that same order as in the conference program. So we'll give each speaker 15 minutes, and then I'll make some brief comments and pose some questions to get the question period going, and then we'll open the debate to the rest of the group for a larger conversation. Sounds good? Okay. So for the first presentation, Axel and Ezgi, will you be using slides?
We have no slides.
No slides. Okay. Well,
unfortunately.
Well, in no ways. No, I'm just asking, you know,
okay.
for the screen share option. So, well, let's start with yours then. I'll pass the word to Axel and Ezgi. Their title is Authoritarian Populism, the AKP and the Universities in Turkey.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I remember yesterday in the morning, we already had the question if we can make a direct relation between economy and populism. And I remember Elke saying it does not appear as such. And for our presentation, we are using the understanding like Ernesto Laclau was developing it in 1979 towards the theory of populism. And he also says that the political conflict has its class dimension and also its non-class dimension, and the class dimension itself is not constituting itself in pure economic relations, but it is always related with other dimensions of power and rule. So Laclau differentiated between the conflict between ruling classes and laboring classes versus people and power conflict. In this class conflict does not exist in pure terms, but has so always its articulation with cultural and other conflicts and conflicts between state, bureaucracy and people. So what he then said is that populism very much relies to the conflict between state and people, between bureaucracy and people, and very strongly emphasizes the popular interpellations. And if we look to the classical right-wing populism, we have this very strong phasing of the national popular axis of conflict, and therefore also very much this relying on the claim to represent the authentic culture of the people against the elites. Meanwhile, this we see very strongly in case of many populists emphasizing economic liberalism, emphasizing strongly politics on behalf of economic freedom. So we know this also very much from elements like further pushed forward when the crisis of social democracy in the late 1970s appeared in United Kingdom, and Thatcherism was then coming and saying, we are representing the popular people against the oppressive social democrat heritage. So what they were doing, to put it in theoretical terms, they were remodulating the popular traditions and resistances against the state into support for their own project, which was putting forward neoliberalization as a promise. And this way of putting neoliberalization forward as a promise for freedom, we will find also in many formal developmental states when populist forces are making the axis of class invisible, but are using an anti-statist discourse to present themselves as the voices of the subalterns, therefore using a very highly culturalized language. And with this extended culturalization, it goes hand in hand with the otherization of many other people who are not representing in their reality this populist image. So this is very important when we also look to the history of Turkish populism. So this populist interpellation you will find in Turkey, for example, not only, but for example, after the military coup of 1980, when the people were presenting themselves as the voice of the subalterns against the state establishment, meanwhile pushing forward the agenda of neoliberalization as we know it from the military junta. So they were pushing forward hegemonic class interests via utilizing an oppositional language. So where can we bring this into relation to university? What I told you now is at first very much discourse not only of the governing AKP nowadays, but we find it also already with politicians like Turgut Özal. Many conservative but economic liberal parties were using this language. The problem is that the university is very often seen as the agency of the bureaucracy of the center. So intellectuals are not representing really the authentic people. So the problem is also populists are presenting themselves as the voices of the subalterns. If institutions like universities are independent, are having their own logic, they are staying a little bit beside the will of the people. Therefore, there is a relation of tension between the populist claim to represent the culture and the people and having independent institutions. And this is one problem. And the other problem, of course, is that meanwhile having some suspicions against such institutions, having some suspicious views on intellectuals produced within those institutes, there is a problem that the populist forces themselves want, of course, to have a differentiated capitalist society running, a differentiated capitalist society with a highly differentiated division of labor, which simply needs professionals. Therefore, it is very complicated to simply frame universities along the own populist narration, and it is very complicated to simply put pure political interest into the universities. So the governance of universities is a very complicated task for populists on power. And this very complicated task needs to be understood. And for that, Ezgi is now going into the details and also delivering our conclusion.
Yeah, hi everybody, and thank you, Axel, for the introduction and for the conceptual insights. I will be talking more on the AKP side, AKP and university side of the issue. Yeah, in like 7 minutes, I guess. So as mentioned, one of the biggest success of the AK Party was its capability of maintaining and reproducing its power with the ongoing discourse of being the voice of suppressed people, even its omnipotent times. So this discourse becomes more clear when it aims at universities and the academia, and more specifically sometimes some parts of the academia. The AKP shares the anti-elite, anti-establishment and anti-intellectual features of a right-wing populism, which can be traced back in Turkish political history. And Erdogan and the AKP, while reproducing an anti-academic discourse, they at the same time penetrate into the universities. So they both attack universities and try to dominate universities. The question of whom they do attack and why is related to the aims of the AKP regarding the universities. The answers to the questions of what they want to accomplish and what they actually do are among the components of authoritarian populism of the AKP government. And how much it is achieved addresses the limits of AKP and Erdogan hegemony over universities. So in this part of our presentation, I will try to touch upon these questions. And in a very recent speech, Erdogan expressed that he is still not satisfied with their cultural, education, and intellectual power. He states that after 18 years of power, they still couldn't establish their intellectual power, and adds that they couldn't accomplish their civilization projects. This speech reveals the fact that educational policies so far have been away from meeting the desire and projection of the AKP and Erdogan in the educational and cultural field. And in the outward discourse on universities, details of the program creating universities with Islamic moral sentiments are not manifested and not put forth as a fully developed project actually. So the discourse is mainly made through an opponent stance with an anti-stance such as anti-Westernism, anti-intellectualism, and anti-establishment, which is a quite fundamental feature of all populist forces actually. So to the extent that universities are formulated as the institutions of the Western-oriented establishment of the Kemalist paradigm, AKP managed to melt an anti-Western rhetoric with its anti-establishment discourse and operationalizes this while targeting the universities. Both as a part of its anti-establishment rhetoric and as a part of power strategy, removing the Higher Education Council was among the election promises of the AKP. This Higher Education Council, I will say YÖK from now on, was established just after the 1980 coup d'etat. So in the meantime, YÖK wasn't removed, but became an organ of the AKP and increased its scrutiny over the universities. YÖK isn't removed. On the other hand, it became the core state apparatus of the AKP gradually while managing the higher education, the university. So it's emerged as the primary apparatus for the government. And any independent body within the state apparatus represents the very existence of a system of division of state powers. In this context, we again have to remember that the long-lasting discontent of the authoritarian populist forces with the principle of power division. So it is because claiming to be the voice of the people, with the voice of the speechless people against the establishment, is in a structural conflict with accepting a differentiated system of checks and balances. And so we see this tradition, ongoing traditions, and it is also discussed with the term of deconstitutionalization in Turkey. So just a parenthesis. And the principle of autonomous universities, which universities governing themselves, has always been a thorn in the flesh of the authoritarian populist forces, and at least since the principle of autonomous universities from 1961 in Turkey. And the power of AKP over YÖK and the universities increased, and especially with the state of emergency following the coup d'etat attempts and with presidential decrees, this power has been exercised more and more. And one of the important developments throughout this process is the rectorate elections. It was abolished in 2016. So, and this was being legitimized as a time-saving and effective way of management, the management mentality of neoliberal governance, let me say. So besides this attack on the autonomy of the universities, the university-industry collaboration has always been the hallmark of the higher education vision of all AKP governments. This pragmatic and market-oriented higher education was taking place since, for instance, 2006, all strategic reports of YÖK. What AKP does throughout this time, so by opening new universities, specifically Faculty of Divinities, the objective to have a neoliberal Islamic universities is tried to be achieved. However, today, Erdogan himself questions the success of this neoliberal Islamic project for universities. The antinomies of higher education strategy does not only derive from the fact that desire of an authentic and national university and an academician is paradoxical, but it is also in conflict with the global aspirations of the AKP and the particular role of education in that. Education does not only fulfill an ideological role, but also has an economic role, which is the production of skilled labor force. Any functionally differentiated and class-divided modern society needs scientifically educated professionals for keeping the process of capital accumulation running. With the desire of further integration to global market and to increase the competitive power of the country, need of skilled labor force has always been emphasized in the policy documents of AKP governments. And the education reforms being justified with reference to necessities of globalization and information society. In line with the global trends, the global world trend, the premises of the human capital theory set the framework of educational strategies of AKP governments. However, what we observe is AKP and Erdogan turned blind with the aim of immediately capturing universities and utilizing them as political apparatus, and neglected and sometimes even challenged the university's own logic and their unique role within a capitalist social formation. Governing these conflicting tasks seem to be the weak part of the AKP's educational and intellectual project, to the extent that their imaginaries could not find a social material base, they remain suspended. So while saying the antinomies of the AKP's higher education, we wanted to address this angle between the educational reforms discourse on that and the AKP's discourse and their, let me say, imaginaries on universities. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Axel and Ezgi. So next up, we have Rohan from Maitreyi College, University of Delhi. And the title of his presentation is Good Muslim and Militant Hindu, the Sociology of Right-Wing Populism in India.
I have a PPT which I would like to share. And also I have put the PDF in the chat box if anybody would like to read, so that you have a better understanding. And here I go. Thank you. I hope the PPT is visible to you all. Oh, great. Thank you. Hello everyone, and thank you for the invitation for this in this colloquium. My paper, as Dr. Pepper has already said, it's Good Muslim and Militant Hindu. So it has two premises. Basically, the question here which my paper would like to answer is that in 2014 and 2019 Lok Sabha elections, Narendra Damodar Das Modi formed the government. He became the prime minister. Everybody was happy, particularly the majoritarian population. But what exactly did not anybody look into was the population of the Muslims that voted for the BJP. The percent is 8%. The total population of Muslims in India is 20%, out of which 8% voted for BJP. Nobody asked this question, why did that happen? Now, if you look at the performance from 2014 to 2019, you would see that there was an increase in the number share of vote and the number share of seats won by BJP. And yet the Muslims population voted for the BJP. And in those 5 years, if I have to give you a small data, 13,781 cases of riots were registered in India. 791 riots alone happened in a place called Karnataka. And even in that place where the population is 13% and it can take care of, actually it can influence 90 assembly seats out of 224, only 7 Muslim MLAs were elected from Karnataka. Now, if you look at from the vantage point of a political scientist, they do not worry, they do not care about it. But I think there is a sociology involved in it. You have to understand that why, when substantiative electoral freedom exists, why would Muslim vote for BJP that profess an anti-minority agenda? Here, if you see, the problem is with the psephologists, the problem is with the political scientists, the problem is that they have tried to understand Muslim as a homogeneous entity, which is untrue. Muslims basically is a very heterogeneous community, and it has two important population, as like if you have to divide it in terms of the community. One is the Pasmanda. Pasmanda are the lower caste Muslims, and Ashraf are the higher caste Muslims. Now the problem in India is people do not want to believe that even even the caste system exists in Muslims. So if you look at the division of the sects within Muslims, you will see on the left, you have many sects. You have Wahhabi, you have Deobandi, you have Ahmadiyya, you have Ahle Hadith, you have Bora, Khoja, Memons, and then you have Muslims. So you have different sects, and if you look on the right, you would see the population percentage. The majority of the population, 85%, Ansari and Qurayshi, they do not have any electoral representation at all. Those numbers that I showed you right now, 7 MLAs, out of which none of them belong to Pasmanda, none of them belong to lower caste. So basically, it is the Ashraf that controls, that is the higher caste Muslims that control the electoral politics of the Muslim community. Now by looking at the hierarchy, the lowest are the Qurayshis and the Ansari. That is the lowest form of the higher of the Muslim caste. Above them are the Sayyids, the Sheikhs and the Pathans. and over the top are the Bohras, the Khojas, and the Memons. Now, what is interesting to note here is Bohras, Khojas, and Memons do not consider the other Muslims as true Muslims because they consider them as converts. So what do? In matrimonial alliance or business alliances, Khojas and Bohras would end up having alliances with the Hindu community rather than with their own Muslim compatriots, and they normally give them a slang. They use a slang to denote them. They are called Mia Bhais, who are basically cobblers and puncture makers, and those who work in meat shops. So you see a very big difference between these two communities. Now, exactly 3 days after the U.S. elections, we have a state Bihar in India. There was an election. Now look at the proportion. The Grand Alliance, which was formed to defeat the fascist majoritarian populist regime of the BJP, had 40 candidates. They had 40 Muslim candidates. Out of those 40 Muslim candidates, you have none as a lower caste Muslims. Now you are going to fight with a rightist force, making a point that you also have an agenda, but you yourself are not yourself are not making pasmandas inclusive of the politics. And obviously the fascist government, the BJP, the majoritarian government, they only had 2 Muslim candidates and both were Ashraf. So basically we have a premise that is happening, and still the Muslims vote for the BJP. Now looking at that question, there we have to look at this subalternity that separates. The answer to this question for a Hindu is different, and the answer to the same question for a Muslim is different. Why? Because Hindu come from the Varna system or the caste system. So even if you are a lower caste Hindu, you yourself are part of the Varna, so you can connect with your God because the God is common with the higher caste. But in terms of the Muslims, they do not follow, they don't fall into the Brahminical patriarchal social formation. So what happens? They fall into a different kind of a concept. That is called the Sharif or the gentleman's hypothesis. Now what is that? It means from the medieval time period, when there was a Sufi influence in India, since that time period, the Muslims in India, they do not like to be associated with the manual labor. So what happens? The Sufis of South India, I'm talking about 13th, 14th century. Since then, the Sufis of India, they did not like to call themselves by their profession. For example, you have an example of Fadruddin Attar. He is a Sufi of West Asia. So he says Attar. Attar means a perfumer, the one who deals with perfumes. But in India, you do not find such proclamations. They do not want to be associated with an occupation which is menial. Number 2 is the politics of language itself. Since they are part of a society where they have been, they have migrated a long way back, or they have converted, so they associate themselves with the Persianized culture that they have left. There's a longing for that culture, and therefore they link themselves with the language called Urdu, and they link it with so much so that they almost consider it to be a holy text. Pasmandas, the third feature of this culture is the Pasmandas, the lower caste. They revere the Sayyid caste. Sayyida, if you remember, I just showed it to you. They were up on the social ladder. Why? Because Prophet Muhammad, the Sayyid caste basically is considered to be the direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. So you understand, there is also a kind of socio-religious mentality problem wherein a Pasmanda cannot rise above the upper caste and it cannot question the upper caste. And number 4, the whole act of being Sharif, that is the whole act of being a gentleman, and you will do it through adab and akhlaq. The whole act of being Sharif is sharafat, so you will do that. Now the problem is, all these things, this culture, all these 4 things happens through mosques, madrasas, which is in control of the ashrafs. Now even the people who are at the elite group, they control it, so they also control the life of these Pasmandas. So in their premise, there is no concept of social justice outside spiritualism. Now, With the minority commission in India, with the kind of minority commission that was created, these Muslims whoever could get education out of the madrasas, they came out of it. And it is that population with certain, obviously the elite who are opportunists, who are going to vote for BJP in 2014. So it is basically a premise that actually kept on building. Now you may ask, there could be a question, why this was not checked? If that is the problem, if the idea is to appease the minorities only to get a vote, why was not it checked? Why was it not checked? The answer to that question lies in the whole idea of secularism in India. Secularism in India is different from secularism of the West. We define secularism not as separate politics and separate religion. There is no separation of power. Rather, here is cooperation between the two, which means that everybody is equal, but Hinduism or Hindus are more than equal. And this is a premise which was there in the Gandhian thought also, and it was also in the thought of Nehru and all the nationalist leaders. So if you see implicitly, the whole nationalist movement since the time of the turn of the 20th century always had that kind of a polarity towards the Hinduized concept of India. And that is why, if you see, the idea of secularism is defined according to the Constitution of India, which is actually the book of the country. It says Sarva Dharma Sambhav, all religion prosper. Now that's a Sanskritic term taken from the texts, Hindu texts, and that is how it is defined. Now, this kind of philosophy that defines the secularism gives or prepares the foreground for the Hindutva populist forces, which is going to hegemonize the political space, which will culminate in the rise of Modi. And then the work of charisma comes into picture, where Weber says that a charisma is also very important because the cult is created in politics. So it happens later. Now, the question is how the social justice within Hindus work so that it will become militant Hindu later on, particularly the lower caste exposed, because you will see, just like the Muslim, the lower caste were controlled and subjugated, even the Hindus lower caste, they were also subjugated. But something happened in 1990. Mandal Commission gave the backward caste of India the room, employment and education. So they became employed, they became educated, so they came out of that society or that space where they were not given the ample opportunity. Now that actually showed you two things. One, it showed you the whole, it actually questioned the whole majoritarian concept within the majority. The majority within the majority community was lagging behind. It means the upper caste of the society was trying to demean the possibility. Plus, they were also questioning reservation. Why? Because according to them, the upper caste, for them, merit and efficiency and competition should define who should get a job. So basically, there was a sense of dualism. They wanted to control the society through their Brahminical Varna hierarchy, and at the same time, they wanted the same majority. Mind you, that majority who got the reservation are 52% in the country, and yet they wanted their vote. Now look at the irony. Mandal Commission was passed, those 52% got the reservation. However, in the elections, the government who gave this 52% people their reservation, they lost the elections. And this actually tells you that there is a different kind of a social formation, a sociological interpretation which requires to understand what is happening in Hinduism. And there comes the Ram Janmabhoomi or the Ayodhya issue. Now, the liberation of Ram was in fact tactics of the right wing to bring together the majoritarian Hindus that had turned against each other. In fact, Lal Krishna Advani, the person who started the Rath Yatra, who called in for Ram Bhakti and Lok Shakti as a symbolical meaning, he also called upon people to bring in blood and arms. It was so militarized. He himself in an interview said, and I quote, he says that he himself admitted in the interview that his march to Ayodhya had taken away the cynicism that was fostered by the Mandal Commission. Before I started the Rath Yatra, I knew I was right, and now I am totally convinced. Now that actually was a way to bring back the majoritarian population, the lower caste, back to the fore, so that they do not leave the Sangh, the RSS, and they keep on working and wielding the sword in the name of the RSS. That is the Hindutva force that I am talking about. Now, what we learned, what I was trying to highlight here is that there are 4 remarks that I have to make for Indian secularism. Number 1, it is a pendulum of opportunism that existed not only for RSS or BJP, it also happened to exist before independence and also at the time of the Congress party. Number 2, imperative, it is still continuing because it is an imperative to the national unity, which will promote a concept of a leader or a leadership, that is the promotion of cult in politics. Number 3, the roots of militant Hindutva forces goes too deep to the foundation of the Indian variant of secularism that protects the brand of majoritarian politics that ensures an upper caste Hindu supremacy in India. It ensures that, which I have already mentioned. And the 4th one is the militant majoritarian populist Hindu movement that cuts across party lines. It is a common class that consists of anyone who was a Hindu and waited for their turn to be prideful of something that could give them a sense of belongingness. Now that belongingness could be of any nature, and there are many different ways in which the same majority power has been used. Now comes the state sanctity given to Hindutva or militant Hindus. This happened way back in 1954. In 1954, the Supreme Court of India, the highest court, in a case which is referred to as famously known as the Shirur Mutt case, it gave 2 things. It actually in the verdict it says 2 things. Number 1, it says rituals and ceremonies are integral part of the religion. Now I have to make an interesting submission here. For this verdict, the Indian judge quoted a US verdict saying that the US Supreme Court, whatever they have defined religion, we do not believe in it. However, we will take into cognizance a verdict that has been passed in the Australian High Court, and that is how they came up with this decision. Number 2, that the Brahminical hegemony over the religious institution of the Hindu, whereby it certainly gave precedence to ritualistic Aryanized Vedic superiority over the tribal non-Aryan bhakti orientation of the lower caste, meaning thereby they institutionalized the RSS Shakha, that is the idea of a Shakha culture, the idea of Yajna, that is the ritual culture of worship, meaning thereby they legalized RSS oriented schools, institutions, colleges. That is to, and they basically also made sure that they gave RSS the idea that they can go ahead and they can hoist a flag, a Bharat Mata flag, on the day of the Independence Day. And they could anytime claim that they are actually doing their own rituals on that particular day. So that gave further strength to RSS and BJP. Now the second case is called a 7 series case called the Hindutva judgment. In this judgment, for the first time, the concept of Hinduism and Hindutva were conflated. And so BJP celebrated this idea in their journal called Organisé, and I quote, they wrote, "The apex court has fully and unambiguously endorsed the concept of Hindutva, which the BJP has propounded since inception," meaning thereby they tried to tell the lower caste people that we the Brahmins, we the Aryans, we the upper caste were never wrong. It is the country that accepted whatever we were saying later. So a time will come also that they will accept that Nathuram Godse, who killed Mahatma Gandhi, the father of nation, is also a very important deed, and he is a patriot and not a terrorist. So that kind of narratives began to grow. Now let me culminate both the things put together. So a good Muslim, the same Muslim who were lower caste Pasmanda, they came out and they formed in 2002 a Muslim Rashtriya Manch. It is a flagship of the Muslims with the support of the RSS. Now they are the ones who are going to campaign for Modi or any BJP candidate for that matter in the constituencies in the Muslim community, and that is happening since 1977. 1977, they had a Muslim minority cell. So by including Muslims in their shakha as well as universities and colleges, these pasmandas were given a space where they can become much more Hinduized than Arabized Muslims, and that is the process. Now, very quickly, I will just tell you the features of the nationalist populist in India, and it is very interesting. That's why I'm going to put it across. Populists believe they speak for the people. They pretend to be poor. They make everything sound as if they are taking revenge for the wrongdoings that has happened to those who are silenced through ages. Project their leader as an ordinary man with extraordinary caliber, and besides that, they challenge the set of notions of good behavior, cultured society, cosmopolitan endeavor of a bourgeois ethos. Basically, they create also imaginary enemies. So basically, any English speaking Indian is basically their enemy. It may seem that populism feeds on empathy, but that is untrue. Why? Because they are very good at theatrics. They would show you larger than life pictures. For example, Narendra Modi's idioms are very famous around the world. He is called to have 36 inches chest size. He sleeps only 4 hours, works for 18 hours. He used email services before even the email and internet world was invented. So basically, he's a superhuman, all powerful, sheer sharp memory with physical fitness, and all thanks to vegetarian habits, yoga, the true premise of a true Hindu. So basically, the whole idea of Hinduism is important and this is my last slide, so just bear with me. So I will read it out for you because it is that is the concluding remark which I want to make. I would like to say that under Modi, the process of drawing the unemployed and disgruntled youth, particularly Hindus, who can take up sword on their behalf, has fostered the process of plebeianization of BJP, completing the process that began altogether before independence of India. The fear of these youth is channelized through check the minorities, particularly by feeding on the idea of real sons of the soil. That is the army of the militant Hindu that ensures that only good Muslim live in India. There is no clear-cut attribute of a good Muslim except that one is the most vulnerable one and are the most dangerous ones. At least that is what all the deaths in lynching and riots confirm, that the Muslims who die are mostly lower caste Muslims. Muslim Ashraf, that is the higher caste, are safe in all this. Therefore, the onus of being a good Muslim is directly proportional to the social status and dominance that one acquires in India. So this is a simple chart to show you the percentage of vote that happened since 1999 till 2019. The percentage has almost remained the same. As you can see, I want you to concentrate in 2019 BJP, 37.36% votes, out of which 8% is Muslim. So it is actually Muslim population that makes a difference. So a psephologist would not understand.
Sorry.
Yes.
For 21 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just getting over with it. So if you look at it, only 37% vote was only 37% vote went to BJP in 2019, out of which 8% is Muslim vote. So they do not actually form majority of the majority, and yet they had the total number or the most number of seats. So that is what I would like to say in the at last, that a psephologist may not understand the very intricacies of why a Muslim would vote for BJP, but a socialist or a historian and a socialist would definitely do that. Thank you so much. I would be it would be very great if I could get comments, suggestions or questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rohan.
Yeah.
And next up, we have Santoshi Kumari. And Santoshi, did you want to share your slides as well? Your microphone, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to share my screen. Yes.
Yes. Now I think you're authorized to.
Yes. I hope it is visible.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yes. Is it visible now?
It's almost there. Yes, now it is.
Yes. Yes. Is it visible? Hello. Ha. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to the organizers of the webinar for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts on populism in India and how there is a nexus between the religious elements and the right-wing politics, how the religion has been used to propagate the agendas carried on by the RSS and the political party BJP. So the title of my paper, as you can see, is Your Ram versus My Ram, the politics of Hindutva and religious populism in India. In this paper, I would be discussing more about the kind of changes that happened within the Hinduism, the kind of propaganda created by the RSS and BJP, that is the right-wing politics of India. And I would not focus on the communalism part, which has been time and again repeatedly talked by the academicians, how the sense of the other, Islamophobia, is used to research the power of right-wing politics. So here in this paper, I would be discussing the political and sociological background of the rise of RSS and BJP. In this paper, I have also taken up Hindutva, Who is a Hindu, is a pamphlet written by Veer Savarkar, the ideologue of RSS. Madan Mohan Malviya and Lala Lajpat Rai sanctified this pamphlet, adopted this for the RSS, and this is the pamphlet which actually runs behind the ideology of Hindutva. Then in this paper, I have also discussed the sociology of the BJP supporters. And here I do not discuss about the Islamic population, rather the Hindu population. In the Hindu population, I have discussed about the economic and the political background in which these sections of Hindu population started supporting the right-wing ideologues, the politicians, and they were the biggest buyers of their propaganda. So that has been discussed in the paper, and primarily the war with the Pakistan and China, demolition of Babri Masjid, economic reforms which came in 1991, and the Godhra incident. That those are the political background in which this paper has been located, and have tried to find out the sociological explanation and the political explanation for the rise of Hindutva politics in India. And through this, I have tried, in this background, I have tried to read and analyze how Hinduism was changed, the very focus on which Hindutva is centered, and in the process of promoting the idea of the other, promoting the idea of Islamophobia, actually they started changing the very essence of Hinduism. And for the presentation, I have used the images which has come out after 1992, that is after the demolition of Babri Masjid, how these images have been used to embed and entrench the idea, imagery of Ram, and hence the Ramayana. So it is very interesting to note why Ram is chosen as a god for fulfillment of political agenda in a land which is of homo ritualis, which is a land of 33 crore gods. Why Ram and why Ramayan? Perhaps the answer lies in the socio-cultural impact of Ram Katha, Ram culture in the Indian culture. And also the Hindutva, the pamphlet which I was talking about, it draws its explanations and expositions from the days of Ramayan. And Ram is seen as the person, the Aryan from whom India has received its sanctity and legitimacy. So I would straight away come to this chart, which shows that as the political development and the formation of government of BJP came in power in India, similarly, it follows the footsteps of hard-faced Hindutva, also followed in the same fashion. In the first 1996, BJP government came for 13 days, made a government for 13 days, followed by 13 months, and then finally a full-term government came up under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And then 2014, the hard face of Narendra Modi came up, and from that particular period, that is of 2014 onwards, we see hard face of Hindutva politics coming up. Prior to that, we do have ups and downs of Hindutva politics, but 2014 is the time period when you see the hardcore Hindutva phase coming up. Now, one has to understand the importance of Ram in the Indian culture. Here, Ram is in every grain of existence. Even when we greet each other for a Muslim festival, even that comes in the form of Ram Ram. Greeting, early morning greeting is Ram Ram. The last funeral rite is, Ram Nam Satya Hai. The omnipresence of God is all about Kan Kan Mein Ram Hai. So the very idea that Ram is entrenched in your daily life, right from your birth to death, actually makes it very potent to pick up that particular deity and use the deity for realizing your political ambitions. Now I'll straight away come to the images. I would just help you in taking a look on the traditional portrayal of Ram. Here, Ram is in kingly attire, sitting on a throne with his wife Sita. This is again a very popular depiction of Ram, where he is with his brother on his right, left Sita, his wife, and Hanuman is kneeling down and seeking his blessings. I would seek your attention to the kind of facial expressions they have and the kind of anatomy which is drawn in the calendar art. These are the popular art form which we see in the calendar and posters prior 1992. Now, this is again Ram along with his four brothers, and the brother Bharat, the one who is kneeling down. He wants Ram to come back, take his throne, but Ram is very kind, and he talks about the truth and the dutifulness and fulfilling the promise of his father. He does not want to go back. All those parts of the narrative story in Ramayana. Here again, one can see the court picture of Ram. He is with sages and Hanuman. Very interesting depictions, which all we get to see from 1992. Prior to that, the poster art, which was there in every house on the New Year day. We would buy a calendar, fix it in our house, and this is Ram. This is my Ram. This is Ram for Indians. So now, if ever I would seek your attention in earlier posters, Ram is always with his family. This is the only picture where you see that he is in Swayamvar, where he is there to win over his to-be wife Sita, and he breaks the bow. This is bow of a Parshuram. Now, this is another picture, very famous poster art, where Hanuman, the greatest devotee of Ram, he is hugging his God and seeking his blessings. So, and this is another art form painted in medieval days. Here, the battlefield of Lanka and Ravan, slaying of Ravan, and Ram in the picture has been portrayed. So if you see this picture, here too, Ram is not all alone. Rather, there is a retinue helping him to win over the battle. Now, Ram is considered as Purushottam. He's an ideal man who will carry his duty. He's a family man. That is my Ram. That is the Ram of Indian. That is the traditional Ram which we all worship. After the demolition of Masjid, Babri Masjid, the new poster art which came up and started redefining Ram, are these pictures. I'll just help you in glancing through these. One can just notice now Ram is alone. background has Ayodhya temple, and it is all fiery and flamey. Ram has a fastened arrow in his hand, bow and arrow, and there is no object on which he is aiming at. These posters, and this is a new digital art form which is trying to depict Ram. You can see how variant Ram has suddenly become. He has become so aggressive. He looks very stealth face. One would not get the same kind of feeling after looking the prior art form, where he's gentle, he's calm, he's sober. Here he's very angry, revengeful, seems like giving you a message, you better do not mess with me, kind of a message that is embedded in the poster. So here again the same kind of poster, and I would make it very clear, I have collected all these posters either from internet or from some archive. These are not sources which I have drawn, so let me make it very clear here. And again there this again Ram who is muscular. Now the earlier poster arts which were there prior 1992, that Ram also had won the battle against two most powerful king of the mythical days, Bali and Ravan, but he has never been portrayed in muscular form. He's not displaying his masculinity. Rather, he is more about being kind and merciful. Now, this is the new graphic art which we see now after 2019 election, where Hanuman is very muscular and Ram is flying, fastened bow. So the images have changed completely, and they are trying to narrate and to let the Indians feel that this is the Ram, this is your Ram. You forget the Ram which were portrayed in prior to 1992 calendar poster art. This is Hanuman. Now after 2019 election, the court verdict came that Ayodhya temple has to be constructed. Now Ram temple, Ayodhya is an issue which can be, now it has taken a backseat. So they have to locate for a newer deity now. Why I am saying this, because the most recent mouthpiece of RSS, Panchajanya, there the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat says that building Ayodhya temple was just one part of redoing the wrong past. We are trying to rectify it. And there they say that we have a long way to go and rectify the past and bring in Hinduism, where Hindu would be first, and we will give them a newer definition. Now, this is again Hanuman. Pre-1992 in the calendar art, in the poster art, where he is all deeply involved in devotion. But this is the angry Hanuman, which has been depicted in, after the 2019 election. And this is how Modi, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is depicted in the larger frame, where Mahakal, the right-hand side picture is of Mahakal, a deity known for his anger and revenge and teaching lessons for people, those who do not listen to him, do not abide by law, do not abide by dharma. So here is Mahakal, and in between you have Modi, and on the left hand side you have angry Hanuman, as if these posters are trying to give a message that you better fall in line. And this was the poster which was used during 2019 election, where you could see just deviation from the angry Hanuman, angry Ram. Here Ram is very supportive and caring of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and this poster was used for the election campaigning. And this kind of posters have been used for creating a populist agenda by the right-wing political parties, and this is how they create an indelible mark in the minds of Indians and Hindus. And this is how the religious aspect, the ritualization idealization of metaphysical world of Ram has been there in the Indian culture, and this is how the right-wing politics is trying to de-philosophize Ramayana, and is trying to re-philosophize it. This is a picture of Durga Vahini, where this is a militant school for the girls, where they train them in the name of self-defense. They learn, you can just see the age of these girls. They all are teenagers and learning how to fire. So, you know, and this is yet another picture of boys. They are again trained for a march pass in RSS. These are the pictures. The regional parties, Shiv Sena of Maharashtra, they too have adopted the idea of saffronization. Here, yes, I would like to also bring in the redefinition of sage. Now, this is another idea which Hinduism, which has been used by Hindutva politics to redefine Hinduism. Sage in Hindu philosophy is considered to be the last stage of a Hindu life cycle, where man moves towards forest, mulls about his existence, and prepares himself to get aligned with Almighty. Now, new age politicians all dressed up like a sage, and they you know, they try to define the newer roles of sage, and they say that these days the modern sages are not supposed to leave the world, rather they need to come back and rule the world and correct the everything done wrong in the past. So and the kind of popularity which you get to see about the kind of posters and pictures which have been you know, created in the post 2019 election. You see angry Hanuman all over, you know, t-shirts, laptops, watches, rare view of glasses of cars and mobile covers. That kind of popularity the Hindutva politics have tried to create, and that kind of nexus you see between the religious element and the Hindutva, and this has been very vigorously, aggravatively used to propagate the Hindu politics. With that, I rest my case. The detailings have been sent in the write-up. I'm sure I have not done a complete justice to what I really wanted to say, but for 15 minutes, I thought images would really capture your attention. So let me just focus on that. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Santoshi. Could you stop the screen share?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'd like to thank our presenters, and before opening it up for questions, just some general remarks and some connection points between these papers. So the first thing that I want to touch upon is how India and Turkey share so many similarities. One of them is that outside the Western world, Europe and North America, those are the two cases that are most commonly associated, or debates about secularism, religion, and politics. Those two countries are kind of the go-to ones that are very commonly studied. But this also sometimes comes with some drawbacks, because at the risk of oversimplification. In Turkey, it's Muslims versus secularists, and in India, it's you know, Hindus versus Muslims, and that's about it. From the Western gaze, I would say. But in reality, as these presentations have been showing us, there are many contradictions and nuances and transformations that are ongoing in these two places, and they kind of defy simple, easy definitions or explanations sometimes. So just to mention a few contradictions, one of them is Axel and Ezgi mentioned that the AKP is trying to control the Council of Higher Education, YÖK, but also repopulate it and retransform it and make it its own at the same time. So that's one contradiction. Or in Rohan's paper, Muslims are on the receiving end on the Hindu discriminatory Hindutva politics, but also there are Muslims, significant portions or segmentations within the Muslims that are voting for the BJP. That's or part of the RSS itself even. And also Santoshi talked about how this movement claims to speak for Hinduism, but in the process, according to some observers, it's damaging Hinduism and the idea of diversity and inclusion that's embedded in it for many of the people, for many people in India. So another similarity between these two countries, one could say, is how this, the definitional approach to, well, the definitions of populism, basically, the people, and then the elite above, and then the others below. So in Turkey and India, these show significant similarities because both the AKP in Turkey and the BJP in India consider the people as, and religion becomes a key figure or key element here, people being either the Hindu majority, about 80%, or the Sunni Muslim majority in the AKP's case. And the elite in both cases is the secular founding parties that are distant from the people. It's the Congress in India and Nehru and Gandhi, who are distant from real people's religion or people's real practices. And in Turkey, it's the Republican People's Party, starting from Atatürk and all the way to today. They're the elite. They don't understand the people because they're not religious enough. And the other, it also shows some similarities. In the case of India, it's mostly the Muslim minority. In Turkey, it could be people who are secularly oriented, or we can talk about the Alevi minority, and also the Kurds that are not part of AK, the kind of like Rohan's good Muslims, bad Muslims, and the bad Kurds that are not buying into the AKP's program. So just to highlight these similarities, I'd like to end with a question to kind of open the discussion, and that goes for both, for everyone, for Santoshi, Rohan, Axel, and Ezgi. So the place of religion, it's a topic that is particularly close to my heart. The place of religion when we talk about populism. So one thing that comes to mind is religion the cause or the effect here? For Erdogan, for Modi, and for their movements, is religion being appropriated in opportunistic terms, or are these, in your minds, are these movements that by definition want to uphold religion? So it's kind of a chicken and egg question, and I know that there are no straightforward answers, but I'd like to maybe begin with your thoughts on this topic. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. I guess in 2013, I was in India 1 year before Modi became elected. And so as there are many English-speaking newspapers in India, I was sometimes reading about him, one time him in quotation, and I also thought this person sounds very much like Recep Tayyip Erdogan in many respects. And it was for me also very obviously that BJP and Turkish AK Party are sharing many similarities. The appropriation of religion is a very complex question. I would say that the approach of the AKP is a very instrumental approach regarding religion. I mean, of course, they are coming in their origins from the Islamist movement. But as we already said, running a state or running a differentiated economy has very much to do with utilizing some languages, some discourses, some imaginaries in a way that you are able to run the state, or that you are able to bring it into line with hegemonic interests. And so when we look to some discourses or some academic works already from the 2000s, maybe very well known from the late 2000s, Jian Dual, who said that Islam has been appropriated by neoliberalism, and who made this kind of ethnographic in-depth study on how it has been on the micro level, religious lifestyles and interpretations of religious imaginaries being appropriated by neoliberal images. I would share this in many respects, and also if we look to some counter movements, like, okay, it's a very small movement like anti-capitalist Muslims, who then come and openly criticize the government for this way of appropriation. But there has been, I guess, one very big mistakes in Western discourses on the parties. They always thought, okay, this appropriation of religion goes hand in hand with making it more moderate, and they do not understood that in the way like this appropriation moves forward, it goes in hand in hand with radicalizing it on behalf of right-wing identity politics. So
it's appropriating and transforming at the same time.
Both, yes.
Yeah. Other takers?
If I may, yes. So I'll give you an example. I'll start with try to answer this question in two different ways. Lal Krishna Advani, the person who started the Rath Yatra, his daughter is married to a Muslim. So the point is, when the people, the other party, or the people who are part of the BJP and others, when they ask Lal Krishna Advani ji this question, or for that matter, that person, why did you marry your daughter to a Muslim? He says that we are a vibrant country. We do not believe in religion. We want to start a process of assimilation where the Muslims who has India as their mother and fatherland would also like to make their holy land. So we have started the process of assimilation, and therefore in 2014, post 2014, we are not fighting elections on religion, because Ram Janmabhoomi anyway it would happen, because now the Supreme Court is also listening to them. The idea is vibrant Gujarat, the Gujarat model. So what he is trying to do, or the BJP is trying to do, is at one place, until the time they had to pull the lower caste Hindus to become part of their their army, militant Hindus, they were pulling that from the Dalit and the lower caste OBCs, other backward caste. For them, they play the religious card. So assimilation process, transformation process was happening until a time. Now they are also showcasing it to the world that we also can be part of the chronic capitalist society, which the Congress was once projecting it to be. So we have both the things put together. So if you come with us, we will be doing it. So religion with certain changes. Now look at from below. From below, at the lowest society, at the lowest rung, I'll give you another example. The elections, in the elections, the BJP got the sociology right, as one of the articles said of Christopher Jeffreley. He says that until now it was believed that there are certain constituencies where we have majority of communities. For example, there is a Yadav community, that is an agrarian community. They normally are into milking cows, and they are Hindus. So it was believed that Yadavs are mostly in majority in Uttar Pradesh, and therefore if you have to win the elections, you have to go to a Yadav. Uh, in most of the places, it did not happen. BJP won 75 out of 80 seats in Uttar Pradesh only because they did not choose a Yadav. Rather, they chose even a lower caste Paswan or a Chamar, which is even lower the caste, as like they are the undertroddens. By placing them and saying that Brahmanical religious ideology is to pull back those people who are at the fringes, and by this we are going to make them the BJP candidate and let's vote. So those people who are actually majority but never has got the opportunity to got a representation by the candidates, by the Congress, they are getting representation by the BJP and they will vote. So there the Muslims and the lowest of the lowest caste of the Hindus, they will come together. So at the lowest rung, religion does not play the role, it is the economics, sheer socio-economic background that plays a major role. So assimilation, accommodation happens at the top. From below, it is mostly economics that matters. That is
Thank you. I think Ezgi and Santoshi have some comments to make as well. Ezgi, did I see your hand?
Yeah, if you have time, I just to add something on if it is a cause or effect religion. And it also reminds me that discussion, it also takes place in Turkey. I mean, when something happens that is not even, you know, welcomed by, for instance, Muslims, it's said that this is not really Islam. This is, and also, I mean, we should also be thinking of, if we think in terms of the hegemonic project of AKP, the word political Islam couldn't be used for a while. We couldn't say Islamcı, Islamist, for instance. It was part of the building of this hegemonic project of the AKP in its first years. So I can say that, I mean, it is what prevails is the effect side of the issue, at least. I mean, so as somehow how I approach the issue, we don't have to be discussing of what it is, what real Islam is. You know, it is some part of the theological side of the issue. So this is also out of kind of a question of how to approach maybe to the religion in making of it is and its role in making some power blocks. Actually, not I'm not talking about this daily cultural interpretation of religion. I don't know if I could make my point clear.
Yeah, the debate basically about, you know, what constitutes real religion. You're saying that it could be a dead end if it's if we go too much into that.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I mean, theologists, you know, in the divine faculties, people should continue their researches. But if we fall into this dead-end debate, I don't know if it really helps us to analyze AKP better. This is my understanding.
Thanks, Ezgi. And finally, Santoshi, did you want to add something before we open up for questions?
Yes, thank you for the question. To my understanding, I would like to answer this question from the perspective of how embedded the religious element is in the society. To my understanding, my specialization is on religious history of ancient India, and I always believe that religion is deeply embedded across the sections of society. It has got, the dichotomy which the academician intelligentsia class keeps on making of people, those who are highly educated, scientific temperament, they are the ones who are, less inclined towards religion. People, those who are in the lower rank of the society, they are more religious. I really don't see that happening. In fact, religion is deeply embedded, and yes, the political parties. I would not say that it is limited only to the right-wing politics. Any political party which comes to power, in fact, the very famous demolition of Babri Masjid, it all started with Congress government. Rajiv Gandhi, the Prime Minister candidate from Congress party, he opened the Babri Masjid lock just to reap the Hindu votes, the benefits of it, and win over the elections in the states which were scheduled those days. So it talks about, whenever we see any political party coming up and raising in the chart of popularity, it always happens that they do use religious element to appropriate and realize their political aims. Yes, there is always the factors of economy, the factors of sociology, those are there, but religious is also something very real, very true, and it is there in all of us. We might try to describe it in our own ways, but yes, it does play a very major role. It is, every time there is an approach of remodifying it, but it is not going to go away from this the whole political game of coming into power. Thank you.
Thanks, Santoshi. Guillaume, I think you have a question.
Okay, so if nobody else has a question, I have a quick question maybe for Ezgi and Axel, because I was very interested in the way you try to bring back a little bit of political economy into the study of populism. And I'll ask a question which remains within the Gramscian family, but I really wonder, I mean, I think I like your work more than Laclos and Mouffe's work, and I'll explain why. What I see in the late Laclos, and especially in Mouffe, is a total disconnect from any political economy. There's nothing left of a critical political economy in the way they use the Gramscian notion, the basic Gramscian notion, okay? It was there in Laclos' early work, in very early work where he was still in very close from the Dependencia school. But since the 90s, I don't see that really anymore. And I was wondering if you haven't explored other tradition of neo-Marxian approach to do this kind of connection. And I'm thinking about, well, first, in Hélène Mexin's work on her early book of 1986, The Retreat from Classes. And in The Retreat from Classes, you have a very good critique of Laclos and Mouffe, and how there is a slow movement from Gramsci to Althusser to Poulanzas and then to Laclos, where all notions of political economy are being dilute until Laclos and Mouffe, where it is completely diluted. So that's one exploration I would ask you if you want to explore other Marxian approach. And this framework from Wood has been picked up by a lot of German, by the way. I'm thinking about Anne Slacher, who teaches globalization at York University, Benno Teschke, who teaches globalization theory and international political economy at Sussex University, and Clemens Hoffman, who has been teaching a lot in Ankara before moving back to Stirling in England. Another framework which could be very interesting, I think, for your work is the neo-Gramscian political economy school. So I'm thinking about the tradition of Robert W. Cox, where you have Stephen Gill, you have Andreas Bieler, you have Adam Morton, who have all been trying to return to Gramscian notion to analyze international political economy in a Gramscian framework. And so what I'm asking is really, what is the added value of Laclos and Mouffe here in comparison just to going back to Gramsci, for instance, and to do the kind of work you're trying to do by just going back to Gramsci's work and early notion?
thank you very much for the question. I had the problem that I had connection, so but I hope that everybody of you is able to listen to me. Otherwise, something may get some 70% or 80% of your words. The other things I have to reconstruct. But yeah, what is the value of using Laclos instead of simply Gramsci if we have already very much political economy within our analysis? I would argue, of course, we have made this presentation with Antonio Gramsci only as well. Still, the point is a bit that when it comes to populism and populist discourses and the operationalization, the Ernesto Laclos of 1979, this is the theoretical framework I am largely referring to, is a bit stronger operationalized. So what he is bringing much clearer than Gramsci is the article difference of class-specific and non-class-specific interpolation. So with Ernesto Laclos, you can make the point very clear that the national popular is always existing not only as a cultural conflict, but together with a certain class agenda as well. It can be a higher class agenda, it can be a lower class agenda. And I highly share your point on that in the later works, this economic content get lost. And this is a very big loss, because without economy, I would ask, why populism? Because the populists are dealing with politics, and politics has always a certain dimension of inequality, and bringing people into move to process this inequality within the political sphere. So if it is a kind of going to make a more equal society, or if it is going to put on some political projects leading toward some projects of class formations from above. Both needs this kind of popular interpellation. And
yeah, Axel. We lost you in the beginning, but we
Laclos.
Not that. Well, we lost you in the beginning, but we got, I think, the end of the response, so that's good. Well, we are out of time, but let's open it up for one more question. The next session is at 1 p.m., so that gives us some time. If you have a final burning question, this will be the time to ask it.
So I just switched off my camera because then the connection seems to be better.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, it seems like we don't have any more questions at the moment. I'd like to repeat what Olivier just wrote. Talking 15 minutes, and like within 15 minutes, I think all the presenters were able to do an excellent job to teach us a lot about countries that are not necessarily known They're not necessarily known in, in other places. So I'd like to thank Ezgi and Axel and Santoshi and Rohan for that.
Yeah, thank you for listening and for the contributions.
And I'd like to remind you that we have 2 more sessions before closing today. So this afternoon, starting at 1 p.m., it's going to be on the interdisciplinarity of populism. And it's going to include like psychological approaches to populism, religion and populism, kind of a spoiler alert. I'll talk about India and Turkey as well, alongside Quebec and France. So it's going to kind of touch upon the themes of this morning and in general, and also the political science versus other social sciences approaches to populism by Farooq. And then we'll conclude in the final panel with the populism in North America, including Canada and the US, and also going back to Quebec as well. So thank you very much once again, and hope to see you this afternoon.